Howdy, High Tides. I'm Jed Hoffman with Beachville News. Now, in a few days is Halloween, and I'm getting a slip of paper here. Let's see what this says. Ooh, it says that Halloween already passed. Sorry about that one, folks. Now, if you're as excited for Christmas as I am, then you must be... Oh, get another paper here. Odd. It's early November. It's early November, and you know what that means. It's time for the election. Now, let's have one final look at the debates.
Welcome back, High Tides! Have you guys been keeping up with the presidential debates this month? If not, you're probably not from this country, and all I can say is I'm super freaking jealous. Things have been crazy. The first debate in September really set the tone of this year's election, and out of the millions of Americans watching that night from their TVs, all I remember is no one walked away feeling even the least bit patriotic. Not to mention, the second debate was virtually karate chopped in the throat when the president got COVID. And after all these weeks, we finally got to see the final showdown. And looking back, the only debate I bother remembering was between Kamala and he whose name shall not be spoken. High Tides, did you guys learn anything from the presidential debates? Regardless of what you thought of the candidates, good luck to everyone who is voting. Please make sure to stay safe, and please, please, please make the right decision. If you're not registered, you can experience our voting simulator by answering our weekly poll. At least with ours, you don't have to wait 4 years.
Now that you're informed about who you should vote for, here's a piece on how to vote.
If I have the honor of being president, I promise you I will lead. My plan lowers healthcare costs.
Politics at its worst. President Trump is changing things, renegotiating bad trade deals, securing our border,
making it less expensive for Americans to choose plans with lower deductibles and out-of-pocket expenses by lowering prescription drug prices.
Creating 6 million new jobs. It isn't pretty. The swamp hates it, but Mr. Nice Guy won't cut it. It takes a tough guy to change Washington. It takes Donald Trump.
Care of your health care coverage and your family the same way I would my own.
I'm Joe Biden. I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
And I approve this message.
Hey, High Tides. As many of you are aware, the presidential election is coming up. With that in mind, we wanted to talk voting and why it's important to our country. Voting is a right given to us by the supreme law of the land, the Constitution, since the United States' inception. But not everyone was able to vote from the start. One of the first groups to fight for suffrage was the African Americans, who, after being freed from slavery with the 13th Amendment, fought for the right to vote. This came into fruition after the 15th Amendment was ratified in 1870, which gave all men, including black men, the right to vote. This, however, did not include women. The women's suffrage movement started with Elizabeth Cady Stanton in 1840 and continued until 1920 with the help of figures like Susan B. Anthony, Alice Paul, and Lucy Stone. A leading figure in this movement was abolitionist Susan B. Anthony. She went on to work as a teacher and later partnered with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and would eventually lead to the National American Women's Suffrage Association. Elizabeth Cady Stanton was a leader of the women's rights movement in the U.S. during the mid to late 1800s. She was the main force behind the 1848 Seneca Falls Convention, the first convention to be called for the sole purpose of discussing women's rights, and was the primary author of its Declaration of Sentiments. After fighting for the right to vote for nearly a century, women were finally able to vote after the 19th Amendment was ratified on August 18, 1920. Now, why did these groups go through all the trouble and hardships to just have the right to vote? Well, because not only is voting symbolic to our independence, but also signifies that we, the people, have the power to change how this country is run. Voting gives citizens the power to change the government as see fit, and without it, the government has complete control. Some notorious examples of those governments are North Korea, Cuba, and the Soviet Union, which each have and had dictators as their leaders with failing societies. So, High Tides, next time you vote, remember, voting is your right and duty.
Now that you know how to vote, it's good to be safe while you're doing it. Here's a piece about COVID that's sure to kill 99.9% of germs.
Did you know nearly 80% of illness-causing germs are spread by your hands. One germ can multiply to more than 8 million germs in one day. Your hands are the main source of the spread of viruses, diseases, and germs, as well as bacteria. When bringing your hands towards your face, you're exposing yourself to the risk of getting sick. Throughout your day, you go around touching multiple surfaces that have germs, bacteria, and viruses. Then when leading your hands towards your face, you're just going to make it worse. The CDC recommends that we don't touch our eyes, nose, or mouth. This will lower the chances of us being contaminated. By touching your facial features, the virus can enter your body without you knowing. To prevent this, wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. And if you don't have access to washing your hands, use hand sanitizer to kill the most amount of germs possible. My message to you is, don't touch your face.
Now, every week is a week, but only some weeks are in history. Here's a look back on this week in history.
Good morning, High Tides. Welcome back to This Week in History. To start off, on November 2nd, 1957, residents of Loveland, Texas, reported sightings of unidentified flying objects with bright lights. After the sightings, Jim Lee, head of the Interplanetary Space Patrol, predicted that the UFO will soon come in large numbers for all to see, and the skeptics will have no choice but to agree. On November 3rd, 1957, Laika was a Soviet space dog who became one of the first animals in space and to the first animal to orbit the Earth. Laika, a stray mongrel from the streets of Moscow, was selected to be the occupant of the Soviet spacecraft Sputnik 2 that was launched into outer space. Next, on November 4th, 1980, former Hollywood actor and Republican Ronald Reagan won the 49th U.S. presidential election, beating Democrat Jimmy Carter in a landslide victory. Due to the rise of conservatism following Reagan's victory, some historians consider the election to be a political realignment that marked the start of the Reagan era. To conclude this week's segment, on November 5th, 2011, a Canadian dentist had bought one of John Lennon's teeth for £19,500 at an auction in Stockport. Alberta-based Michael Zuck bid by phone to secure the molar given by the former Beatle to his housekeeper Dot Jarlett, who worked for him in the 1960s.
History is universal. Speaking of universal, did anyone go to Halloween Horror Nights this year? No? Oh, is it because it was closed? Here's a piece about that.
Hey High Tides, we all know about the infamously scary Universal Horror Nights. Let's ask some of our very own High Tides what they think about Horror Nights. Hi High Tides, we're here with
Julian,
Ali,
Izzy,
and
Javier.
But first, let's look at the history of Horror Nights. The first ever Horror Nights was in 1991 and was under the title Fright Nights. It was only a 3-night event and the admission price was only $12.95. The attraction very quickly grew from as the 3 previous nights to a 5-night run in just the following year, and only the 4th annual event expanded to 8 nights.
Over the years, the attraction became so popular, pulling in people from all across the world to take a look at the frightening, haunted houses and rides. The atmosphere alone has driven in people since the opening, where rides and haunted houses can get wait times of up to 3 hours.
Nonetheless, it has grew to become a 41-night event in 2019 and was expected to do just as well in 2020, but of course, due to the ongoing pandemic, they will not be continuing the 30-year tradition this year, but hope to come back just as strong in 2021. Okay, so have you guys ever been to Haunted Horror Nights?
Yes.
Yes.
I cannot say I have.
Yeah.
What was your favorite attraction?
I like the vampire one. Once.
What was your favorite attraction?
My favorite attraction was the Insidious house.
How come?
It was very... I like... It was the Insidious house. It was the Insidious house. It was very scary. There was more actors than the other houses they had that year. I forgot what year specifically, but...
And yourself?
To be honest, I don't remember.
Okay. Did you know that they aren't going to be opening up this year?
No.
Will you be going next year?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you know that they aren't going to be opening up this year?
No.
Yeah, I knew that.
Are you going to be coming next year?
Yes.
Yes.
I did not.
Alright, well, will you be going next year?
No, I will not.
Alright, thank you.
Happy Halloween, and remember, High Tides, stay safe and healthy.
Well, believe it or not, this episode, like all others, has come to an end. But first, to the surprise of nobody, it's time for Second Opinions. Last week, we asked you, the viewers, the only question that can really be asked nowadays: Trump or Biden? Well, the answer shocked us here. Biden won without getting a majority of the vote, which basically means that he won with getting less than 50% of the votes. That's right, 49% of the votes went to Joe Biden, 25% of the votes went to Trump, and 26% of the votes went to Kanye. Yeezy himself split the vote two ways, meaning if everyone who voted for Kanye voted for Donald Trump, Trump would have won. Just a little fun fact for you. Now, normally, we'd ask another question and put out another poll, but this week, we're doing stuff a bit different. There's a much more important poll happening right now in the world: the election. So, everybody, as sick as you are of hearing about it, go vote. Please vote. And if you can't, pester your parents into voting until they do. With Beach Film News, I'm Jed Hoffman. You've been you. Stay classy. Goodbye.